babes. Welcome back to another episode of the Babe That's Bonkers podcast. I'm your host, Kaylee. So happy to be here. So happy to have you here. Today, we are going to have a bit of a more low-key, chill, intuitive, chit-chatty episode. There are going to be some, structural aspects to it, our usual whatever, but I didn't feel like doing a pagan holiday episode fully, though we will get into that today with St. Patrick's Day coming up. And even though there's also a lot of stuff going on with the stars, I still wanted to take a bit longer of a break before fully deep diving into another Astrology 101 episode. I feel like let's just absorb everything that's happening and then we can do our learning later. Let's not get too overwhelming and whatever. And I just crave variety, which we will also be talking about today. So I just want to switch things up a little bit. There are some concepts I have been thinking of quite a bit recently that I would just like to share with you. So today we are going to be talking about being a jack of all trades or a master of one. I don't think there's a wrong answer, but they are two different paths to take in life. This is a concept that I think of quite often as someone who craves variety. Like I said, I crave variety when it comes to how I spend my time, the different activities I'm doing, learning about. That's kind of the basis of today. But it also shows up in, the food I like to eat, drinks I like to drink, beverages I like to drink, I guess you could say. That would be more proper, perhaps. I also feel a bit like a wanderer, I guess you could say. I definitely also crave variety in the environment that I'm in, which is ironic because I also have some homebody tendencies. I don't know, but I like to move my home, perhaps. I have my things that make me feel homey, but I don't feel attached to a specific place, if that makes sense. Home's where the heart is type thing. But the area of life that I have most been contemplating this concept in is my career, especially as an artist. Like I've said, I kind of say fuck having a niche. I think that is such a Debbie Downer way to look at things. There's just so much opportunity, so many things to experience, so many things to learn about. I just don't want to limit myself, but that also makes me feel quite overwhelmed because I feel like I don't have enough time to learn how to do all the things that I want to do. And I try to take it one step at a time, but I also am not great at seeing things through. It's I'll start a project and then I instantly want to start the next project before I fully finish this one. It's just come to a stopping point, and coming back to those things, like I've said, is just not my strong suit. Something I'm working on. Sometimes I also feel like I'm gonna ruin my paintings when I come back to it. I made great progress and it might not be finished, but if I come back to it, maybe I'll make it worse type thing, which I very much need to let go of. The perfectionist in me. Sometimes I just need to fuck up, But with this existential crisis regarding, how to spend my time, how to learn, how to develop my skills, what to focus on, I was doing some Googling, some researching, just comparing the different paths of being a jack of all trades and a master of one. I also thought the little title was such a funny little play on words, jack of all babes. I hope that made sense. To me it did. I had some other ones that I tried out, and that one just made me the happiest, and I wanted to use it even if other people didn't get it. So there's my explanation in case you didn't. And now I'll move on to the research Googling I did. So a way that they kind of compared these two different paths is if you're a jack of all trades, you're more of a generalist, a little bit of everything, and your time is divided on multiple skills, learning multiple skills, honing different skills. It kind of takes away from the opportunity to develop expertise, or it takes longer to fully develop those skills and get to these more advanced levels because your attention's divided at the end of the day. So where I feel like I'm at in my journey is I feel like I've spent a good chunk of time working on photography, a little bit less time than that working on painting, even less time than that working on podcasting, and I'm still taking baby steps in all of them at the same time. And I really want to be successful in all of these categories. I want to give them all my attention. And then there's also like my other hobbies that includes like cooking and gardening and stuff like that that I have kind of been neglecting these days. Cooking and I have just taken not like a breakup, but just like a step back. Like I was cooking a lot of meals from scratch very, very frequently. That is my preference, but that also is very expensive in today's economy, and it also takes a lot of time and a lot of energy. So that's kind of one of the areas of my life that's been compromised recently. And gardening, yeah, I have some house plants, but I don't have like a garden the way I would love to have a garden. And I would really love to get that going this spring, but my landlord has indeed not replaced the roof on me greenhouse. So there's also that. That's like the ideal space to utilize at my like rental, and yeah, under construction, I guess you could say, perhaps. But I have all these categories, and especially with like my painting, there's even more like subcategories with like different mediums and stuff. Like I'm pretty familiar with acrylics, trying to get more familiar with oils and chalks and pastels and watercolors and other things because they all just excite me so much. I've also been doing like some collaging type things and would love to scrapbook because I have all these pictures and thingamabobs that could turn into a really beautiful memory book type of thing. But just where is the time? That's where I feel like the struggle is when it comes to being a jack of all trades, is like you have to be patient because the progress is slower because your attention's divided. That's kind of like the point I was coming to when I was really thinking about this whole concept. And you know, it just shows that there's like pros and cons to it all. Like, yes, you do get to experience a lot of different things, but the work and the time that you have to put in to like get deep into these things to more like intermediate and advanced levels, you know, it really is the fruit of your labors. And I do think that there's like a cool thing that happens with this whenever you're working on different skills, as you see how they can overlap, and it allows you to like just like view things from a unique perspective and be a pretty good problem solver at times. I think that's a pretty common attribute to these types of folks. An artist and a very well-known like jack of all trades that I'm always inspired by. I feel like my kind of abstract styles of art like remind me of looking at theirs as a kid, especially with my more like swirly psychedelic type paintings, because I have a few different subgenre niches, whatever, when it comes to like my art portfolio and whatever. But anywho, the artist that I really admire and I feel like is like the epitome of being a jack of all trades would be Leonardo da Vinci. You know, not only was he an artist, but he was also a mathematician and a scientist and a philosopher, I think. And there were just like so many different experiments that he worked on and like problems he worked towards solving. And, you know, the way like people talk about his work and the way that he operated seemed very, very chaotic, which is very much how I feel. And just the fact that Da Vinci dipped his toe into so many different pools and found success in so many different ones, and also was met with failure and rejection, which I'm sure led to so much growth on his part and allowed him to, you know, continuously problem solve on other projects type thing. I don't know, I just find it all very, very inspiring, and it makes me feel like it's possible to not pick a niche. And it's just a reminder that you can have it all, just not at the same time. That is something that I am constantly trying to like remind myself of, like one of those mental mantras that, you know, kind of encourages me to have patience and also appreciate where I'm at in my journey. Like I can have it all, but not at the same time. Like right now in my life, I have a few different focuses, but I can only focus on one of them at a time. And some days one's gonna get more energy than the other, but you know, I can try to like balance that if I'd like, or I can really hone in on one for a while and then take a step back and really hone in on another. Like there are a lot of different ways to be a jack of all trades. I think part of it is just like finding what works for you and like trying different ways of like balancing out all of your many different interests and like skills that you would like to build up. And now on the flip side, we have the master of one. So they're kind of more of a specialist, the expert when it comes to certain different skills. They have a more complete, well-rounded understanding of kind of those more like niche concepts. And most of their time is spent focused on, honing in their craft, and, it allows them to get deeper than other people who are perhaps, distracted by other things, but it also takes away from their opportunity to develop additional skills, when they're so focused on this one thing. So again, it's the give and take, the pros and cons. There is no better or worse, only different. And the one thing that I think is really, really beautiful about both of these paths is they're both centered around learning and growing. Like down each of these paths, you have to keep on walking. Otherwise, you can't become a master if you don't keep learning, if you don't keep practicing, if you don't keep, doing the trial and error to like get to that place of like mastery and expertise. And also, if you want to be a jack of all trades, you have to put in the effort to learn all of these different skills and navigate the best way to balance them. So I guess that also leaves a third path in life, which is just to do neither and not really encourage learning or growth, just allowing for like stagnancy to take over, I guess. And that does bring along another question, I think, which I do not necessarily have an answer to, but can you move from path to path to path in different seasons of life? I think that is definitely very possible, in my opinion. I don't know if you can truly achieve the same mastery if you are kind of like spending a season of life focusing on multiple different skills, and then a season of life, where you're not really focusing on anything. You have to take that like mental break or whatever, and then you jump back into like the mastery thing. You pick one of those skills, the one that fulfilled you the most, the one that you enjoyed the most, the one that you were kind of best at and more naturally talented at anyways, and you continue to hone that skill. I'm sure you can definitely get to an incredibly advanced and like expert level in regard to it. But if you compare that to some of the like superhumans that have existed who, don't really stray from their path, don't really allow themselves to get distracted, like how does that type of mastery compare? You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to be like a downer or anything. I'm simply just, curious in these thoughts. Like, is that what makes a prodigy a true genius versus just like a regular person who works very hard and does their best and can still achieve amazing things, but just like lacks that special je ne sais quoi or whatever they call it, And if that is the path that you are on, like, do you still reach that same level of fulfillment because you never gave yourself any breaks or room to breathe or time to explore other things? You know what I mean? So I think that brings the whole concept of like jack of all trades, master of one to a conclusion, to just like life is life and ever changing. And I do think that you can like wake up at any moment and decide to walk a new path and try something different and new and whatnot. And as long as you're walking, you're making progress. And I have just really enjoyed this conversation. I'm not sure what it is about this concept that just like really sparks something inside me. Like I equally get excited and really, really stressed. Like on one hand, I feel like I do not have enough time. I have not done enough. Like I am so behind. And I think that's just like the being a young girl in her 20s type thing playing in. And I do have to remind myself like I have so much time. But it does also excite me because it reminds me that it is possible to experience so many different things in your lifetime and learn so many different things. Like I can learn all the different forms of art. I can be a painter, I can be a potter, I can be a sculptor, I can be a photographer, the whole shebang. There's nothing to stop me from doing that. I can also be a writer if I want to. I'm already a podcaster. Here we are doing the dang thing. And that gets me so excited. And it really helps me combat the stressful feelings I feel in regards to like being behind, and it reminds me that like eventually my time will come to like really hone in my gardening, my travels, my cooking skills, and all that jazz. I just have to be patient with myself. So if you ever feel like that, just remember your time will come. Be patient. take care of yourself the best you can, and there are no wrong choices, just different ones. And you're going to learn from all of them, and it's going to be really cool and exciting no matter what. So just have some fun. That's something I've also been really trying to focus on and bring to like the forefront of my mind is like in this new season of life, I'm about to have a birthday, so I'm very much thinking of like the kind of energy I want to bring into my new year, I guess. And two things are having fun and embracing just like calm energy. Like I want to have fun, but I also just like I want to be chill. Like I don't want things to stress me out. Like I just want things to roll off me. I want to just take things as they come, handle things one step at a time, and just be calm, be at peace with just whatever the universe brings. Life can be stressful sometimes, and those things are out of my control. And that's just something I'm constantly trying to remind myself of. And I feel like whenever I make time to have fun, it distracts the brain from all those anxious, intrusive thoughts, And that's what I've got for the little girly chats today. Or I shouldn't say girly chats. Anyone could enjoy these chats. But I'm a girly and I'm chatting, so that's where that's coming from. But we're going to move on to chit-chat about the next pagan holiday. It's not going to take up the entirety of the episode because it is just kind of like a blurb, a fun little interesting story, something to ponder on kind of thing. But St. Patrick's Day is coming up, and I'm sure you could guess that St. Patrick is a Catholic saint, and this happened to be his feast day. He's known as the patron saint of Ireland and is associated with like driving the snakes out of Ireland, which the Busy Pagan blog informed me is actually a myth. Ireland natively never had snakes that needed to be like shoot off away from the island, and it's actually a metaphor, an ancient story for like pagan people and beliefs. So in the witchy pagan communities, they call St. Patrick's Day All Snakes Day as kind of like an homage to the original ancient traditions that existed in Ireland before Catholicism moved in and kind of drove out all of those people, or at least the like public celebrations, interpretations of those religions outside of Catholicism, Christianity. A lot of the history I have also read regarding just like all of the different pagan celebrations and spiritual practices and ancient rituals and all that jazz. A lot of it does mention the ancient Celtic people, so it would make sense that this would kind of, hit home a little bit differently for the native people of Ireland. And obviously, present day St. Patrick's Day has evolved into its own thing entirely. Like, we have our own communities that have their own celebrations. Like, by no means do I think that because these, like, pagan holidays exist that you shouldn't celebrate regular holidays in today's society. I just think it's interesting to learn about this history and, like, the origin story of everything. I'm not trying to yuck anybody's yum, just trying to learn a thing or two, share a little bit, see what you kind of think. And, when I think about it, like St. Patrick's Day, at least in my hometown, like we always had a parade. It's something I participated in whenever I was in the marching band in middle school and high school and stuff like that. And just like the festivity of like dressing up in all green, and a lot of people now that we're adults, going out and drinking, like it is a fun thing to do culturally within your community. And I don't think that like an icky history because some people who existed once upon a time did some not cool things should take anything away from that. But I do think it is important to learn about history and things that have happened, so we don't over glorify things that aren't accurate, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? But if you are looking for ways to celebrate All Snakes Day, you can check out the Busy Pagans blog. I'll link up below, per usual, and essentially just gives out a bunch of different like snake-themed crafts and activities to do, which could be fun. I do feel like it's extra appropriate this year with the whole Chinese zodiac being the year of the snake and all that jazz, And snakes are also just cool in general, very symbolic, very transformative, See, that's what I've got for the pagan holiday. It wasn't a super in-depth blog post, so not a ton to share in that department, but I did want to mention it because I did find it quite interesting. And we're just embracing today's theme of being a jack of all trades, and we're just chit-chatting about a little bit of everything today. You know, a little bit of like fun existential crisis chats because we're human, and then some pagan holiday stuff because we're witchy girls, some astrology stuff because we're witchy girls, some life updates because, you know, who doesn't want to know what's going on in my life and what I'm eating and all of that jazz, obviously, and our tarot reading because we're witchy girls. Yeah, and I don't know why I'm recapping a little table of contents, but I feel like it fits the jack of all trades vibes, you know? So we're gonna jump in to our astrology thoughts for the day. There's a lot going on with the planets up in the stars and all that jazz. So today I'm actually going to start off by reading from my astrology app. I said I would link it. I'm pretty sure I forgot. No, I know for a fact I forgot. And we'll see if I can figure out how to do that this time because it's an app. But it's just called Numerology and Astrology. And if you can see the camera, where is that? There's like, it's green and gold, and just has like a few little tabs for numerology, astrology, tarot reading, and stuff like that. So it is very informative. Like I mentioned before, it does have ads, which is kind of frustrating to like read more in-depth stuff. And there's like a paid version to read the most in-depth stuff. But I feel like using this free app and also the Cosmic Latte's free information, I'm able to put like 2 and 2 together because I'm just not at a point in my life where I am, you know, spending money on these subscriptions. Perhaps one day soon, if the podcast makes me any money. But until then, we are living the poor girl's astrology life. Anywho, to actually get into things, the moon, we're having a full moon coming up, perhaps whenever this episode is out. I do think we'll get into that in a second. Hold on. I'm putting the cart before the horse, saying 3 sentences at the same time. The moon. Today, the moon enters Virgo while the sun conjoins Saturn in Pisces. Indulging in fantasies and other delusions becomes nearly impossible to do, but your reality check doesn't have to be soul-crushing. Strike a balance between being whimsical and being realistic. You can hope for the best while still managing your expectations. So with the full moon coming up, you know, we have kind of like the cycle coming to fruition. You know, the new moon is a new beginning, the full moon, completion of the cycle is how I remember it. And if you want to know what I mean when I'm talking about the moon being in Virgo or the sun being in Pisces, you can reference our Astrology 101 episode that goes through all the different zodiac signs, and that kind of brings to light the different energies that are a little bit heavier on those days, different themes that are a little bit more prominent that just like reflect those signs, you know? And it really just feels like a lot is going on with the moon and the sun both moving into more distinct positions at the same time, in addition to what we'll be getting into next, which is the different retrogrades that are happening. So I think we talked about how Venus was doing its retrograde into Aries. Mercury had moved into Aries as well. Now Mercury is also retrograding. So we have like a dual retrograde happening with those two planets, which we will be deep diving into in a couple weeks. It'll be a very, very fun time. And I feel like when we finally get around to that episode, we're going to have like an aha moment with all of this retrograde chit chat. But bear with me for now. You know, the little sneak peek. This is the preview, precursor. Still important information. So going back to Saturn also being in Pisces with the sun moving into Pisces, that's called cazimi whenever a planet is like moving in conjunction with the sun. So, and that's happening today, March 12th, as I'm recording this. And with it being in Pisces, it's kind of that breakthrough moment with something that you've been putting emotional labor into. You remember, Pisces is known for being more emotionally sensitive and intuitive. So any area in life where you've been exuding more emotional energy is probably going to have a little bit of a breakthrough moment. And I feel like it's perfect timing, honestly, to have that breakthrough moment, because with Venus being in retrograde, it's been shining a light on all of our relationships, with ourselves, our self-worth and all that jazz, and also with our friends, family, partners. And again, that's not necessarily a bad thing. We're just being like reflected, like what is important to us, what matters for us, what aligns with us on our journeys. And it's been so interesting, like just like my personal experience with that at the moment, I feel like is very accurate to like the way the Venus retrograde has been described. And I don't know if that's placebo affecting myself, but I feel like it happens and then I learn about it. I'm like, that makes sense, versus like I read about it and then my life happens and I'm like subconsciously making it happen that way. That's like one of my biggest concerns being like an astrology girl. I feel like that's why people get like a little bit crazy with it, is they start like reading into it as like assumptions and rule and law and like what's actually happening, rather than like a moment to be like, oh, there are just like other energies in the universe at play. Like I have, less control over certain things, but I have control over these things, so I should focus on them. And regardless, like it doesn't hurt to just take a second look at the relationships in your life and determine, where you could improve upon, where things could change for the better, kind of thing. But it's also been interesting that I've had a few different friends whose situationships and like friendships and relationships that have kind of fallen off over the past few weeks. And, it fits the theme. And I know I've said a lot already, but I'm not done yet, because on Friday this week, tomorrow, for you listeners who are here on day one, first Friday, getting a sneak peek, so they're in the know, but we're gonna have a bit of a lunar eclipse, which is super duper exciting. If you've never watched an eclipse, a little trick I've done is, don't stare at it unless you have like welding goggles on. That is very, very bad for your eyes. So if you don't happen to have welding goggles, you can get a piece of paper and like make a little circle in it, and then with its like shadow you can see the movement of like the eclipse. And I don't remember if I did that with a solar eclipse or a lunar eclipse, so maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. Do some Googling before you take my word for it. That's just a little something you can check out if you want to do something for this lunar eclipse. So the lunar eclipse has to happen whenever the moon is full, right? So it really is kind of that like ultra heightened full moon, full circle moment where things just kind of like come to fruition. You kind of either realize like, aha, this is something that needs to change, I've outgrown this situation, or you're finally getting to like reap the rewards of hard work. And I guess when it comes to the eclipses, it has to do with like the movement from like node to node, and it's a part of like a 6-month cycle. So thinking back to like what was happening 6 months ago, what were we working on? And this is kind of that full circle moment that we're getting to, not just like the monthly cycle, but the like bigger picture. And this eclipse is happening near Virgo and the South Node. So the South Node is kind of a representation of the past. So that's kind of why these themes of like outgrowing, moving on, full circledness, that's not really a word, but that's why those themes are like ever present at this time. And I feel like that definitely directly plays into what continues on March 15th. So maybe it started and it stops. I'm not entirely sure of the specific pattern of these retrogrades. I just know that the retrograde itself is that opposite movement to its normal movement. But Mercury continues its retrograde through Aries on the 15th. And as a sneak peek, I think I've heard that Mercury is a planet that represents the theme of like communication. So that's kind of where these like short-tempered themes are kind of coming from, just like impulsively spitting out words, speaking your mind. Speak your mind can be a great thing sometimes, but sometimes also not if you don't really think about it beforehand. And that's the danger of the communication planet moving into the hot-headed Aries zone. And with all the movements with around the South Node as well, it definitely prompts discussions of the past. So it's a great time to reflect and press pause, with everyone feeling the urge to speak their mind. It can become very confusing, just having so much happening at once. So there might be misunderstandings. It might feel like a setback or a delay, but just like be patient with yourself, you know, and being conscious of this. You know, maybe you can plan something that's, you know, like a little bit more of alone time, or just something like chill that might not like trigger these like hot-headed conversations. You know, whatever relationships might be feeling most volatile at this time, you know, maybe just like give it a break for a moment. And that is all for today's astrology thoughts. I think that's a good place to take pause. You know, that was a lot. There's a lot going on, but I feel like the themes are, you know, they stack on one another well. They collaborate in a way that makes sense. I feel like I'm not wording myself very well these days. Come on, Mercury, planet of communication, get on my side. You know, actually, I was at work yesterday and someone else was also having trouble with their words. So sometimes you just get a little bit tongue-tied, and that's okay. That's how the cookie crumbles. But yeah, that's all for astrology thoughts for today. There will be a lot more coming throughout the rest of March. Don't think that things are going to chill out anytime soon. The planets have other plans. But now we finally made it to the life update portion of today's episode. I've had an interesting week, to say the least. This necklace of mine that I'm wearing is a runaway. There have been multiple times where I have lost this necklace. I don't even necessarily remember where I got it. I feel like I got it during like spring break whenever I was in high school at a little beach shop, but I could absolutely be wrong. Maybe I got it at a thrift store. No, I think I got it at a thrift store by the beach. Now that I'm saying that, I can't tell if I'm remembering or if I'm just like making up an accurate scene, because I've just like been to the beach a lot of times growing up in California. I was very blessed in that way and whatnot, but I know this necklace did come from the beach. I'm like 95% sure about that. So it is very cute. It is authentic. It is authentic beach vibes in that way. I don't know if it's like authentic seashells or not, but once upon a time, whenever I worked at a grow facility and we had to like change into uniforms and stuff like that because it was a dirty job and we didn't want our clothes to get dirty, and then the plants also just like need to be kept sanitary, like that's important and whatnot. I had lost this necklace and I thought I like lost it in the laundry, and they had like a company that came and did the laundry service and all that. So I was just like, fuck, like shed of luck, necklace is gone, poof, whatever. And then my now partner actually hints at our story. We'll share it another day. But he was working in the room that I was previously working in, and he found it and gave it back to me. And that's now the memory that I have most attached to it, or at least that's what it was until now. Now I have two memories attached to this necklace: getting it lost, and then also something really, really sweet and amazing happening that day. So I guess that's a good omen if I'm gonna lose this necklace, and it always finds its way back to me, which I think is really, really special. But yeah, I was searching the other night. My partner and I did a late night dispo run and whatnot because we were just enjoying our time off together. You know what I mean? Eating some pizza, watching some Naruto, as you do. And somewhere along the way, I had like taken this exact sweater off that day and like put it back on, and the clasp on this thing is just obviously unreliable. And at some point, it like got loose on me, and on my drive I like touched my neck and it was like gone. So I assumed I had like lost it in the house because I was like feeling for it, didn't see it anywhere. We came back home, wasn't anywhere in the house. We checked like the driveway, in the car, all that jazz, nowhere to be found. And I was just like, okay, let's just call it a night. Like it'll come up if it's meant to come up. And I had the thought, I was like, I wonder if like maybe I lost it in the car and then it like fell out and it's in the parking lot of the dispo. And lo and behold, I had to like work the next day, and I was like walking through the parking lot, and there it was, just sitting in the spot, lying in the ground. And coworkers definitely thought that I was just like being a weirdo picking up trash. Like, it's a newish job, and you know, we don't know each other super duper well yet, just kind of like superficially, surface level. And I got to tell them the fun story about like how I lost my necklace and then I found it and yada yada yada. And I got to let them know that I wasn't just like a creepy, gross like gremlin picking up trash off the ground, like not to throw away and be a good human, but to just like have, that would be weird. You know what I mean? But it was one of the most beautiful things that happened on that day. Another beautiful thing that happened on the day that I found this necklace, it was just the best energy. The best energy was happening for me this morning. That morning. I happened to make a little Instagram post that day, like one of those like repost prompt things. And one of the things was like the like most recent song you listen to. But the most recent thing I had listened to on Spotify wasn't a song. It was an audiobook by Amy McNee, my dream idol hero at this point. I feel so weird and almost creepy like fangirling, but I feel like I'm not that creepy. Like I'm honestly a fairly new fan in terms of like deep diving into the content. Like I barely found her second Instagram that has more focus on her fictional books today, but I started listening to their podcast a few months ago. I followed her for like over a year, and I don't know why I'm explaining my journey of like following this person, but you know, I'm a fan, but in a fun way, not in like a creepy, obsessive way, you know? And she just comes up on the podcast all the time because I listen to her podcast most days because I'm gonna binge it until I get caught up. You know what I mean? It's one of the few podcasts that I'm not caught up on, so I do have just like extra episodes. And especially on podcast days or days where I'm gonna be doing creating, their podcast is just an amazing like hype song in a way. It just like really gets me in the zone and like pumped to like make something, which I feel like is exactly what they want. As some of the biggest supporters of creatives I've ever witnessed on the internet. So I reposted that I was like listening to her audiobook, and I was just saying like, you know, I'll listen to music again once I finish this, because I am like deep in the story. Like I finally got a few chapters into like chapter 5. Now I'm at 7 or 8 or something like that. So still rocking and rolling, and the story is just really coming together. And especially growing up in like a like religious background, I feel like a lot of it makes sense. It's kind of like old-timey vibes, like historical fiction, romance, kind of. It's very interesting, and I'm really enjoying it, and I love that she is the one who is like narrating it, because that's just how audiobooks should be. And I think now that I'm saying that, I mentioned this on last week's episode that I was listening to her new audiobook. So there I am, just being a repetitive fangirl, but whatever. All to say is that whenever I like tagged her in this post that I'm like loving her audiobook, she responded and DM'd me on Instagram and was just like, my heart. And so I took it as my moment. I was like, okay, here I have an opportunity to like interact with someone who I very, very much look up to and am so grateful for on my journey to be an artist. So I wrote out a little blurb. I was trying to like not make it too long, but also like say a lot of things that I wanted to say, because there's just so many things I would love to share with my hero. Like it's one of those things where it's like, if you could have dinner with like, you know, 5 people, like her and her husband would be 2 of them that I would pick. If it could be anybody in the world, like they absolutely would be 2 of them. I just feel like they have so much knowledge and whimsy and imagination and love to offer the world. I would love to eat dinner with them sometimes in a perfect world where it's more than just a parasocial relationship and we're like actually friends. And so all to say that I was very much having a fangirl moment. And she just responded with my name, saying, Kaylee, I am backing you so hard. And that is something that is going to live with me for the rest of my life. That's why I'm sharing it on my podcast, because this is the memoir of my life. And it's one of the most amazing moments. Like the entire day, that day, I was thinking of one of Halsey's lyrics of her songs where she's like, don't meet your heroes, they're all fucking zeros. And I was just thinking like, except this time I couldn't possibly have been more grateful, and it just like showed me that like I am looking up to the right people who are genuine, people who are kind, people who do want to like make a difference. And it was just a really cool moment, and I'm so happy to support her as an artist, and it was so special to hear her say that she's supporting me as an artist. And yeah, it was just a super cool moment. And then I went to work and I found my lost necklace, and it was an awesome time. So yeah, that's one of the most amazing days I had this last week. It was just super, super cool. Another thing in the food department is I meal prepped some sandwiches for my partner and and I love a good sandwich. My dad and I used to like buy like baguettes or ciabatta rolls or stuff like that and make like pretty nice sandwiches. And I feel like to make it a nice sandwich, you really just have to add like lettuce and tomato, like just like all the layers, not just meat and cheese. You need some sort of spread. I just usually use like mayo mustard, sometimes Dijon mustard, sometimes pesto if I'm feeling fancy, hummus if I don't have a good spread on me, or if I just want to like have some like extra protein in there, I'll do that. But adding lettuce and tomato really just like makes a sandwich, and it's just been so nice to have a few on hand. And I think I made just enough to where like they're not going to be like soggy by the time we finish them, or at least like that's the goal. And yeah, honestly, that's just the most exciting cooking I've done in the last week. I also made my like personal classic taco skillet. I just like throw this together. I call it taco skillet because I make it in my cast iron skillet, but you could probably make it in like a Dutch oven, a pot, any sort of pan or whatever. And it's pretty much chili when I really think about it, but I call it taco skillet because I use taco seasoning. So I used to use one of those like taco seasoning packets. Now I buy that stuff in bulk and just like shake it out and whatever. But that'll be ground beef, black beans, pinto beans, corn, and diced potatoes, diced tomatoes. Though I have used leftovers of this and like put it in a baked potato, and that has been amazing. But yeah, I'll just like get a bunch of canned food, thing of ground beef, toss it all in a skillet. Super, super easy, super, super delicious. It's great with like little chips. I like the scoops, if you know what I'm talking about. Those like, yeah, you do. If not, like whatever, tortilla chip, tortillas, baked potato by itself, I'll dress it up with cheese and sour cream and whatnot, and it's a really good time. And I feel like, I don't know, it is just like a good switch up from chili. It's just like same foods, different flavors, so you get a new experience. And I'm a big fan of just like a meal I can throw together with very minimal effort. So now that I've shared that, I feel like a real chef again. I felt like sandwiches just wasn't enough. That's just kind of like putting things together like a puzzle, where I feel like, you need like heat for it to be cooking, if that makes sense. Otherwise you're just like preparing food, preparing meals, not cooking meals. I've never thought about it that way before, but it makes a lot of sense to me in the moment. Another new experience that I had is my partner and I went clubbing together for the first time, kind of. We had a friend who had a birthday, and it was her wish to like go out and about downtown doing the whole party scene. And honestly, our downtown does give just like busy New York vibes. Like I feel like if you lived there, you could never leave there, and you could just like walk to all these different restaurants and coffee shops. There's a little grocery store, and tons of stuff to do. And yeah, you could probably live like the city life in those like few blocks if you really wanted to. It's not my desire, but it's nice to like experience it for a moment. And my partner and I had gone dancing together, but more my kind of dancing, swing dancing, country dancing. But we had never gone like clubbing dancing together, and it was a really fun time. And I don't know, we were very much home buddies, so it was a nice switch up to like just be out and about and be social. And we don't need to do that kind of stuff all the time, but every once in a while, like I think every 6 months is a good time frame to like hit the town, I guess you could say. I don't know. I am quite young, but that's just like not my vibe. I did it as like a college student for a little bit. It's one of those things that I like wanted to do because I thought it would make me cool, but when I actually did it, I didn't actually enjoy it. So I just stopped doing it, and I started doing things that I do enjoy instead, like going to bed early and crocheting and painting and whatnot, and smoking weed instead of drinking, because who wants to be hungover? Like, if I want to have a cocktail, like a mocktail is delicious without the pain, without the stomach, blah, 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 But to each their own. I'm not trying to shame anyone for drinking. I I realize I've talked about me not drinking very much, like, to people who drink, and I just hope I don't come off that way, because I couldn't care less, and I don't really think poorly of you unless you, like, can't handle yourself, and then you probably need some help or something like that, some support in some other way. But, you know, it's totally okay if that is your preferred method of having fun recreationally and whatnot. It's just not my cup of tea. I'll share. And that's what I've got for life updates today. I do feel like life has been simultaneously so busy and not busy at all. I think that's just because things have like slowed down at work a bit. I don't know. My mind is always in a state of chaos, but my days aren't necessarily. But even my friend that I was just celebrating going out and about downtown is actually one who gave me the deck that I'm using today by Heart and Hands Tarot. I also gave her a tarot deck for her birthday. I wasn't sure if it like was her vibe, but just like the whole saying, like, I don't know, it's like bad juju or whatever to like buy your own, which like I said, I don't necessarily like fully believe, but I think it is fun to just like make it like a more communal thing, and I just thought it was very special that she thought of me, so I wanted to return the favor in case she wanted like that opportunity for herself. But I also got her kind of a more silly one, like it was cat themed. I thought it was very cute. She has a cat, so I hope in my mind, I hope that she does tarot readings with her cat the way that guy on TikTok does Cards Against Humanity with his cat. But you know, it's not my job to dictate how someone uses their gift, and if she uses it as like a spiritual practice, that's cool. But I hope she doesn't feel like she's obligated. I don't know, it's like one of those things where it's like, here's the opportunity to like do spiritual stuff, or it can just be like, look at these cool little like artsy cards, you know what I mean? Like with tarot, I feel like it only has to be as deep as you make it, you know? But I'm very excited to be using these cards today. I used them for like my personal reading earlier, and it hit, you know? Like it felt very accurate. And I do feel like this deck versus the other one is a bit more simple, a bit more to the point. Perhaps I feel like the like guidebook is more obvious, but the art is more interpretive, intuitive, subjective. And I feel like the other deck is the opposite, where like the guidebook gives you just like so many different options and like keywords and stuff for like the meanings that you know, you can have like a lot of different interpretations, but the card itself is like a little bit more obvious and straightforward. So it's been really cool working with both of them and just like getting to know, like, I don't know, the different vibes, I guess. And yeah, today's reading with this deck earlier was just a really beautiful one for me. I feel like this is the deck I kind of turn to whenever I'm just like, okay, what does the universe like have to share with me today? Where I feel like I turn to the other one where I'm like looking for like something a bit more specific, perhaps. I don't know. I guess when I really think about it, it is quite interchangeable, but just my thoughts as I'm having them. So we're going to do one card today as a little online witchy woo hippie girl community. Thank you, babes, for being here for today's tarot reading. I don't know why I'm feeling serious, but I am, so I'm rolling with the vibes. Today we have the 10 of Swords reversed. So if you are not watching this, you are doing the audio only version. We have 10 swords. All of them, for the most part, are impaling these two hands that are out there. So there are all these raindrops and kind of like blood drops also, perhaps, if we're looking at the right side up card, but we did pull the 10 of Swords reversed. So let's take a look-see. see what the universe has to share. 10 of Swords. 2 hands hang limp, punctured by swords. Blood drips from the wounds, and rain or tears pour down in the background. So I did interpret that correctly, perhaps. This card suggests that you're feeling defeated. Plans have come to naught, past achievements have been ruined, and your ego has taken a major blow. The revelation of an error in your thinking may devastate you, and projects may lose meaning and worth. Don't surrender to negativity. Things may look different in time. Reversed. You begin to recover from what felt like total loss. In the aftermath of a disaster, a bright side may reveal itself. You may feel strangely exhilarated or relieved. If the worst has already happened, you have nothing left to fear. Alternatively, you may feel cautious or anxious about a positive development, waiting on pins and needles for things to take a turn. Embrace this respite. I was getting a little nervous there. I thought that was going to be a very dark, negative reading, but it turns out that the reversed version was actually a little bit more optimistic, I guess you could say, than the original version. I don't know why I innately feel like the reversed ones are more like, uh-oh, when that's really not the case. There aren't any cards that are specifically good or specifically bad. They're all symbolic. You know, you take what resonates with you, leave what doesn't resonate with you. I'm obviously having some issues with the vocabulary today being grammatically correct and whatnot, but thank you for bearing with me. I also wanted to share, I don't know why this popped in my head as I was reading the tarot, I did cut my bangs. If you happen to be watching the video, nothing special. I'm just proud of myself that they don't look absolutely horrible and that they're like fairly even. I feel like it looks so much better, especially with like the headphones on. I don't know, my hair is just like too long, too weighted, and I feel like this just adds some like texture to it, some personality. And personally for me, I just feel like the curtain bangs fit me. And yeah, I usually like to cut my hair around my birthday. I feel like it's just like a good fresh start, so like I did cut my bangs. I didn't want to do like the whole thing in case it didn't turn out well, because I will probably get like a professional haircut in the summer, do like a pretty decent chop whenever it starts getting kind of hot. But instead of getting my hair cut for my birthday this year, I am getting some tattoos, so just saving up for that first. I told myself I can cut my own hair, but I cannot give myself a tattoo. That is, you know, not something I'm willing to risk it for the biscuit on. Like the hair will grow back. Tattoos, I would like a professional. And there's this girl who I've been following for years and years, and I've watched her grow, and I've had these ideas for a few years now, so I'm pretty confident in them, and I'm really excited to see what we come up with together. And yeah, I think it'll be fun. And Dad, if you're listening to this, sorry if you're disappointed, but I'm an artist. I love art. I want to express myself in my own ways. So yeah, I grew up quite traditionally, but I don't necessarily have those same traditional beliefs, and that's okay. It's okay to agree to disagree. And that's all I'm sharing about that for now. In fact, that's all I'm sharing at all for today's episode. That's all I've got for you. Thank you for sticking around for the tarot pool, just for coming and hanging out, listening to me rant and ramble. It truly means the world. I would love it if you could give a little follow, like, subscribe, whatever kind of love you're feeling like giving today. I am ready to accept from ya. And next week, we are going to be celebrating a bigger pagan holiday. It is definitely going to be the meat and potatoes of the episode, because Easter's coming early this year for the pagans. And yeah, I'm quite excited for that one. And we'll also talk about some other miscellaneous fun things per usual. But until next time. Bye, babes.